Guys, this is totally unhinged. Donald Trump is not holding himself back in describing his new relations with Putin. Yeah, that's the new chapter, which could be a game changer for Ukraine. Let's check out what he said just a few hours ago by the time I'm recording this video.
I don't know, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. I'm looking at it, yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very tough sanctions, but yeah, I'm looking at it.
So, two things. He's feeding, like Putin is feeding Donald Trump with bullshit, and Donald Trump understands that, apparently. It took them freaking half a year to get to this point. We all understood it from the very beginning. And now finally, after the conversation number 6 between Trump and Putin, after numerous of the Vodka visits to Russia and other contacts, Donald Trump understands that Putin is sugarcoating him to get rid of the military support of Ukraine. That's it. That's the only goal of Putin. Plus, also he said here that probably there's gonna be a green light for the new sanctions applied on Russia. Wow, what a magnificent day, I would say. However, I would say that it is kind of early to celebrate. I'll believe it, then I see it. But this change is kind of good, I like it a lot, and I guess you guys as well. I still do not expect that Donald Trump would support Ukraine as well as Biden's administration, as good, it's better to say. I think that in the best case, Ukraine will continue to receive Biden's packages of military equipment. Also, Ukraine would be able to purchase some extra weapons, like purchase using maybe even European funds, and we're gonna speak about it later in this video. So purchasing the weapons extra from the United States of America, at the same time having the support from the European Union countries. And the third good thing, that probably there will be more sanctions applied on Russia according to Lindsey Graham package, which is now has the most of the votes in Senate. Just Donny should give the green light, which apparently he will give, but not more than that I expect from the United States by the time Donny is the president. Well, what I said, it's still enough for Ukraine to withstand Russian aggression in general, but Ukraine will still lose the ground on the front lines little by little, because after all, Russia has more of the resources. It's the long-term war, my friends, and it's not gonna be finished very, very soon. The European Union understands that. That is why they wait 100 billion euro fund for Ukraine in next budget proposal. We're speaking about more than $110 billion. And as I mentioned before, the part of this budget could be allocated to purchase some of the military goods from the United States. However, those packages would be still less compared to what previous White House administration gave to Ukraine. But still, it is the best case scenario under current conditions we have. I mean, with Donald Trump after all. And about the renewal of the military support, guys, it's evident that it will happen. Moreover, Trump promised to boost it a little more. We are now speaking about one extra Patriot system. The talks are ongoing between Ukraine and the United States of America. But United States, they want Germany to send one more Patriot system to Ukraine. Well, for Ukraine, it doesn't matter where to get the Patriot system from. I just want this to happen very fast, as well as Ukraine wants in general. Because this is the situation for Ukraine currently. I took it from the monitoring channels, for example, Insider UA, and they show really hundreds of the drones. Each arrow, again, it's not a single drone, those are usually the group of the drones. And close to the winter time, Russia would be able to produce even more drones. The idea for Russia is to terrorize Ukrainians, for them to force the government to capitulate. That's the project of Putin. I think I told about it on my videos. There was also the information that Donny is ready to send 10 of the Patriot missiles. 10 of the Patriot missiles will not resolve anything for Ukraine, but still they might help to shut down the Russian ballistic missiles, like for example Iskanders. And you know, lately I discovered that indeed there is the shortage of those missiles elsewhere, so United States absolutely should produce more of the PAC-3 missiles, which are capable to shut down ballistic targets. I would say that THAAD, Arrow 3 and Patriots combinations are must-have for any sort of the army nowadays, so United States should boost the production. I mean, just for allies, of course. The Speaker of the State Department today said that the United States of America didn't hold the military support for Ukraine. So what happened 3 days or 4 days ago? It was blocked, and only with the help of the resonance in press, in informational field, with the help of the influencers, we reached the high officials out there through this informational wall, and they understood that they did something really wrong. And Donald Trump had to reverse the decision to re-support Ukraine once again. Actually, he wants to get the profit from the previous White House administration. He wants to show that he's a good guy letting those packages to go to Ukraine. But here the good news that he might even boost the military support if I speak about one extra Patriot system, which I mentioned before. Also, Donny was asked kind of the interesting question about the war crimes which Russia continued to perform in Ukraine. Journalists mentioned the chemicals which Russia used against the Ukrainian positions. Yeah, there was the clear evidence. It was confirmed by some of the Western allies. Germany, France did their investigation and did uncovering that Russia continued to use chemicals, even though Russia said officially that they destroyed all of the chemical weapons they had, which is completely not true. And you may see how the faces of administration relaxed, and after the question they're kind of concerned. But Donny didn't say no. He asked to clarify this information from intelligence services. In a way, intelligence guys say that this information is classified, so we cannot tell you everything about it. But Donald Trump will never accept the violation of the international laws, which any side could break in this war, something like that. The good thing that here administration and Donald Trump, they listen to that question. They do not say any longer, oh, what might happen to you if the bomb strikes you there? Remember, that stuff already happened. And journalists asked the question about Ukraine. Here we see a clear change. And let me show you the clear example of how Donald Trump dismisses the journalist question right away if he doesn't like it. Yeah, it's not connected to Ukraine, but in a way it is connected to Donald Trump, so everything is interconnected. Yeah, this video I took from TikTok, but you may find it elsewhere. This is from the same conference, and they were speaking about Epstein files.
Just interrupt for 1 second. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
The question here was connected to the shocking report about reinvestigation of Epstein files released by FBI just a couple of days ago, where FBI confirmed all of those terrible cases which Epstein done to victims, but at the same time they say that there was no client list and there is no evidence of it ever existed. Yeah, at the same time they have thousands of the victims confirmed and lots of the videos, like thousands of videos of how Epstein did his crimes. Did he do it alone, all of those criminal acts? They also say that the guy committed self-KA in his cellar, which is also kind of confusing and just boosts the conspiracy theories. Well, my idea, I'm almost sure about it, that if Donny says that, why are you asking me about Epstein? Why do you speak even about him? I think that he's in a client list, or it's better to call it a friend list of Epstein. They knew each other for a very long time, for a decade at least. They were kind in a close relation. You may find lots of the evidence about it in internet. And now Donny says bad words about Epstein, but it's not the main topic of this video. It just gives one more confirmation of how new modern-day administration of the White House behaves. And I actually filmed a separate video about it, but not on this channel. I have the other one. It's the trash channel, where I post different information, since it's not really directly connected to Ukraine. So you may check the link and check out this video. For now, let's go to the other news. Or I guess one more Russian general, the deputy of the Minister of Defense, the deputy of Shoigu by the time. So he's accused of bribes and also for corruption schemes relative to the building of the Patriot park in Russia. The guy's name is Pavel Papov, the high-rank Russian general. He was arrested the last year, investigation was ongoing, and now he's been officially accused. So it's like the final stage of the court now, where he might face lots of the time in prison. The prosecution discovered that Papov was building dacha for his son for the money which were allocated for building the Russian Patriot park. For now they found the evidence of that, but more funds were allocated before. They're still searching where Papov spent those money. We're speaking about billions of rubles. The construction of the Russian Patriot Park was ongoing for many years, and they built this, I would say, satanic church out there. It's dark. They changed the form of the classic towers, building them to look like missiles. Inside, everything looks so satanic and dark. They depict lots of the weapons, like for example here you may see the air defense cannon or machine gun. Also like that, yeah, angels with weapons, those guys with Kalashnikovs and those from the Second World War time. That's really glorifying of war. And yeah, this part as well. People and Putin together with some of the officials. Here I see Lavrov. Shoigu, Gerasimov, where the money is spent for building park. I'm absolutely sure that Shoigu was involved in corruption schemes. All of, the most of his deputies were already arrested and some of them jailed. Putin just doesn't want to jail Shoigu right now, but I predict that in the coming maybe months or in the coming year, Shoigu apparently could be very close to the window and he might fall off. Well, guys, what we have here is the last flight of the Russian sophisticated drone. It's called Altus. See how it goes. It was flying not over Ukraine but over the Russian territory. It was the test flight during which drone completely lost the control and crash landed into some of the private space there. Locals were lucky that they were not hurt. The fire brigade arrived later on. Locals report that the drone was shut down, but later on it was clarified that it just crash landed. As you can see, the buildings are very close. Also, this wire seems to be okay. It's just a miracle that no one was hurt there. Here Russians published the unmanned flying vehicle Altius waiting in our army. Not any longer, because it was going through the tests and successfully failed them. Yeah, at least some of the success for the Russian army, that is how it looks like. This drone is kind of big, I would say. It has the landing gear from some of the fighter jet. It's the first crash of the machine like that in the Russian army. So Russia sucks with the new technologies. And even with the new drones, they continue to use the old tactics of the Second World War, where they just attack in those convoys, keeping vehicles very close together. So it's the fantastic target for Ukrainian drone operators and artillery guys. Well, here's the rare example. Then after losing one of the vehicles, yeah, they just hit each other, Russians continued the assault towards the local village. They went into it, but after some time with more fire, the vehicles were annihilated. However, Russians were successful in landing their infantry forces in the village, and after it, it's kind of the big headache for Ukraine to get rid of them infantry there, because Russians go into the basements and it's very hard to get rid of those troops any longer with the drone strikes. So you need to have air strikes, artillery fire, which sometimes is not available because Russians also may spot positions of Ukrainian artillery and send their Lancet drones. So obviously it's better to put the vehicles on the way, which was partially achieved here. It happened in a gray zone, Mykolaiivka village, eastern side of Ukraine. So Russians were not capable to reach Ukrainian positions there, but were stopped in the gray area. And Ukraine later on has the job to finish off Russian infantry. Sometimes Ukraine has to send infantry for those missions. If you guys support me on Patreon, recently I reviewed the Battle of Azov Battalion. These videos are restricted on YouTube, however I may upload it on Patreon, and also I uploaded it for members. So if you want to have like some of the exclusive content, you may support me on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description below. If you don't have the opportunity to support my motivation and my daily job here, you may just press your like and support this channel with your subscription. That's how you boost my videos in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for it, but obviously for members and patrons will have more benefits. And speaking about the front lines, we have the good news from the Sumy region. A Russian offensive not just failed, but now Russians are forced to retreat. Well, at least according to the information from the monitoring channels, Ukraine gained control over this territory lately. I have it from the NOILF reports, and usually they publish the correct information. So Ukrainian army went to Kindrativka village. The fight is now ongoing there, and the Russians are leaving this territory little by little. Still, it's in a gray area. We'll see how the situation goes there, but obviously it was the deflection maneuver of Russia to attack in Sumy region. They haven't used the major resource there. It was a very dumb move actually from Russia to disperse their logistics, supplies and army. They really struggle. I mean, the soldiers whom Ukraine was capable to imprison in Andriivka, it happened like a couple of weeks ago, so Russians struggled there without water supplies, any sort of the food. They actually were happy to be imprisoned. Yeah, we don't see this latest update on the deep state military map, but hopefully with the next update we're gonna have the confirmation from this source as well. What we have here is the old update from a couple of days ago, so it's really hard to judge. But I didn't mention before that Russians attack in Zaporizhia direction in Kamensk, so it was 2 days ago and it is 1 day ago. As you see, they tried to advance towards Plavny and from Kamensk as well. Well, before they had the similar operation, I mean 1 year ago, something like that, and Ukraine repelled Russians. They were forced to leave this area. Now they have one more attack attempt. Again, they do not concentrate lots of the forces in this particular direction. However, they have many forces dispersed here in the south, and if they really want, they may gather those for the robust attack using more forces than usual. Russians' goal is obviously to get to Zaporizhia somehow, cross the Dnieper River and create the bridgehead on the other side. But the problem for Russia is that their economy continued to struggle little by little, and I don't think that they're really capable to conduct those huge operations. But it doesn't mean that they may not try to do it, especially if they pause the war, for example, and try to attack Ukraine or allies in a couple of years. I guess it's already understandable for everyone that while Putin is in power, he'll continue this war. I think it's evident. For Putin, this war is the best thing which happened to Russia for a very long time. For him, Russian economy is rising and everything is perfect. But in fact, he lives in his own informational bubble, in his own bias, which could be harmful for everyone, including Russia itself, because it is going to its collapse faster and faster. It seems like Grog went unhinged today, fighting the Russian propaganda. Well, Grog is also possessing some sort of the Nazi side in some of the posts, but yeah, it fights the Russian propaganda quite well. So I would say that the new Strange update was already released, even though the official release of Grog 4.0 is planned for tomorrow in a few hours. So yeah, here you can see the answer of Grog. It fights against Russian propaganda all the day, arguing with that community that even Margarita Simonyan is dissatisfied with that. She even mentioned the dystopian scenarios where AI will take control over the world and eliminate humans. Yeah guys, I have the Twitter that has the old name Pilot Blog or Dennis/Pilot. You may find me there. The link for it is also in the video description below. Yeah, I use Twitter sometimes, but I'm more on YouTube, Telegram, and I have other channels, YouTube channels. You may check them out as well.
Our armed forces will cooperate even more closely across the world, including to support Ukraine.
But sometimes I even check the Russian news because they share even this stuff. King Charles, with his speech, supported Ukraine. He ensured that the army forces of United Kingdom will support Ukraine. Together with Macron, by the way, Macron stated that Europe will continue to support Ukraine no matter what. So good news? Yeah, absolutely. And Russians, well, they're dissatisfied with that. Some laughing, but mainly they put finger down, so dislike. What they like is then they hit Ukraine. That is how they put everything up, you may say. And that's, by the way, the official attitude of the Russian FSB towards their own citizens who just made the performance. One of the guys took the American flag, somehow sunglasses, and they just made the photo with the Russian FSB building. The FSB is the ex-Soviet KGB. There is no difference, just the name is different, that's it. So Russian FSB, they caught those guys, they put them on American flag standing, and they are now singing Russian anthem, keeping the Russian flag. That's what the Russian FSB is doing. They're failing preventing many of the attacks within Russia, as you remember what happened in Crocus City Hall. They're failing protecting the Russian border, because we all know about the successful Ukrainian Kursk operation. Then Ukraine went deep inside Russia and stayed there for 9 long months. Yeah, we may argue whether it was really the success or not, but from the very beginning the Russian defense just run away all of those Kadyrovites together with conscript soldiers. And it's actually the duty of FSB to organize the defense of the Russian borders. And you know, at least once a month there are some of the attacks within Russia, especially in Northern Caucasus. I just do not mention that stuff in my videos usually, but it is happening, guys, and it's up to FSB to discover, investigate, to prevent those strikes. Not even saying about Ukrainian spiderweb operation, which went mostly successful, as we understand. But what FSB officials are doing is capturing those bloggers, vloggers, influencers, just random people on the streets whom they don't like, and they film those kind of the cringe videos, trying to humiliate own citizens. And here, United States of America, actually. Someone showed this video to Donny. The Russian system is not competent from the head to the bottom. It is because Putin is looking for just loyal officials to surround him. Loyal doesn't mean competent. Usually it's vice versa, and we witness it. A Russian soldier who was deployed somewhere to Ukraine says that he remained alone alive from his entire company, which had the order to take this local village. So he records probably his last video in this circle for some of the applications, saying that he is alone and he doesn't know what to do. All of his friends were captured by Ukraine. Okay, this is the West Coast Customs choppers, modification for the Russian army. And guys, I do not actually agree with the opinion that the motorcycle attacks are completely useless. No, they're more mobile, they're less sensitive to mines because they have tiny wheels, usually on off-road motorcycles, maybe not on this one. And our drones operators say that indeed it is hard to aim motorcycle compared to tank, BMP, or truck. But usually one drone is enough for the Russian soldier. However, you need to have better skills flying FPV if you target motorcycles. Not this one, this is kind of slow, but usually classical off-road bikes, dirt bikes, you need to have kind of the good skills to aim the motor. And that's why also some of the Ukrainian battalions even taking motorcycles to operate during the attack missions. Motorcycles are used not for defense, but for attacks. So they have their own pluses. It's not like complete absence of the logic using motorcycles. Otherwise, Russia wouldn't use them. But they don't care about their infantry in those motorcycle mid-wave attacks. So I think for Ukraine in defense, the motorcycle tactics are kind of useless. However, for the small attack operations, limited attack operations, those could be used. So yeah, expectations, a military bike which was presented to Putin, and reality. Again, expectations, a good motorcycle actually which may carry lots of the stuff. Obviously China made engine and so on, but here is so engine, he doesn't care about his soldiers anyways. Russians are drinking probably vodka on the way. Drinking vodka and next with the juice. They pass the bottle from one guy to another, sharing syphilis together with alcohol. And yeah, it's the big problem actually for Russian army and in general for Russia. However, they may face bigger problem, the absence of alcohol. Those are breaking news indeed. Vodka production collapses in Russia. Oh my god. In this case, Russia may lose the war indeed. What's the reason to fight without vodka? There are many causes actually for production to drop. It dropped by around 20%, and one of the reasons are the attacks of the Ukrainian drones on Russian ethanol factories, which produce spirit, so alcohol for the drinks. The other cause that Russia is using Western-made components for their equipment in those factories, and they need to maintain everything everything is breaking down, so they need to have the access for the spare parts, which is kind of limited nowadays under the sanctions. And the article is that the production of the alcohol is too expensive and not many Russians afford to buy vodka from the markets. They produce vodka themselves. I guess you understand what I mean, especially those people who live in villages. They do not buy vodka. They have their own equipment for production. Right, what we have here is the operation of the Ukrainian Air Force. This is the building where Russians are hiding some of their barracks, and it was kaboomed with the help of MiG-29, I guess. Now Ukraine is definitely strong with aviation use. I guess Soviet-made jets were released and operate more closer to the front lines by the time F-16s are operating against Shahed drones in safe areas of Ukraine. But nevertheless, Ukraine lost at least one F-16s, which was shot down by the Russian air defense. So Ukraine tried to use F-16s closer to the front lines in Sumy region. However, that led to the aircraft loss as well as one pilot loss. But totally because of the friendly fire, maybe technical malfunctions, we'll never know because Ukraine doesn't publish the investigation results. Ukraine lost 4 of F-16s till this moment. Pavlo Gubber, one more candidate for the window procedure, he stated that Russia shouldn't have started the special military operation if it is ongoing as it is ongoing. He says about the betrayal of the Russian military and political command. He mentioned Putin himself. He said that the aim of the special military operation is to zero Russian people, to replace them with some of the immigrants, and that's it. He doesn't see the logic in the Russian command actions with those mid-wave strikes, because Russia is not using its reserves and more devastating weapons. Instead, they send soldiers, and those soldiers who are wounded. So actually, being that Patriot, Gubber tells about the real problems in Russia. He also mentioned the poor supplies and incompetence of the Russian military leadership, which means usually the ticket to the window, as I mentioned already. If you wonder who is Gubber, Gubber was one of the main figures at the start of the war in Donbass back in 2014. Now he is not that important, but by that time he was. Nevertheless, because Russian regime is paranoid after Prigozhin's failed attempted coup, they will handle this guy as well. It's 100%. It could happen very soon, I'm sure about it. My friends, are gonna keep you updated, and now please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot, and also don't forget to subscribe for the channel, because that is how you also show your interest in it. YouTube understands that, and it shares the video all around. It is very important to boost this channel, especially right now. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.